communities. And the next, tourism that takes full account of its current and future economic, social, and environment impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and the host communities. Next. So I would simply say that sustainable tourism is an idealist of fundamental towards an idea to have a tourism that is free from our trace of humanity. So we would like to create something that ecologically and ethically better for our world. So the needs of present tourists and host regions, while protecting and enhancing opportunities for the future, it is envisaged as leading to management of all resources in such a way that economic, social, and aesthetic needs can be fulfilled while maintaining cultural integrity, essential ecological processes, biological diversity, and life support. To the tourist industry, it means that development is appropriate. To the conservationists, it means that principle articulated a century ago or once again in vogue. To the environmentalist, it provides a justification for the preservation of significant environments from development, and to the politician, it provides an opportunity to use words rather than actions. So you see that there are a lot of elements on sustainable tourism. It's just not as simply mere an idea, but it's an idealist way of doing things. And one of them is tourism in developing countries such as our country and other countries that are moving forward. Next. So in sustainable tourism, we have it's a part of UNTVO of Sustainable Tourism Development. It's a part of SDG as well, number 4, 6, and 8, if I'm not mistaken. Sustainable tourism development guidelines and management practices are applicable to all forms of tourism in all types of destinations, including mass tourism and various niche tourism segments. Sustainability principles refer to the environmental, economic, and social cultural aspect of tourism development. And a suitable balance must be established between these three dimensions to guarantee its long-term sustainability. Even though it seems impossible to do the development of sustainable tourism, we ought to always strive to do that. So as impossible as it seems, that we are going to make it an ideal. So yeah, next. Then sustainable tourism should, we ought to make an optimal use of environmental resources that constitute a key element in tourism development, maintaining essential ecological processes and helping to conserve natural heritage and biodiversity. Other than we respect the social cultural authenticity of host communities, conserve their built and living cultural heritage and traditional value, and contribute to intercultural understanding and tolerance. We also ensure viable long-term economic operation, providing socio-economic benefits to all stakeholders that are fairly distributed, including stable employment and income earning opportunities and social services to host communities and contributing to the poverty alleviation. So with that said, we are trying to have we
What?
are going to have make this a way of saving our own heritage. So with that being explained, that I don't know if maybe you guys have an opinion towards sustainable tourism. and its development, you can just raise your hand probably.
What is your question, Miss Thea?
Does anyone have an opinion that different, or you have this different view of sustainable tourism other than what I have been explaining? So Eka said that sustainable is berkelanjutan, tourism is tourist, so you just concluded sustainable tourism, don't forget to come again. Basically, it's not that linguistically meant that way, but sustainability is more like that we are also not only using the earth or whatever is given to us as our heritage, or um, maybe natural resources, but we are also plan to make it sustain. Don't forget to miss her again.
Okay, there is one person who raised their hand, Miss Thea.
Okay.
Maybe you can see in our participants.
I can't. I'm sorry. Okay, I can. I can. Ahmad Fatullah Fida Putra. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Tia, for this precious opportunity. Um, I just want to be an honest person, even though you know that I always lie. Um, I'm an idiot in tourism, particularly in tourism science. So everything that I said today will be quite false and quite not true. But about the sustainability in the tourism, in my opinion, always be supported by our government because it's one of the visa visa, or maybe something that will support our economic in this country. Besides it, it could be one place to create a market and the others. And then, to be honest, maybe you can share about your specific question rather than just say, do you agree or not agree with your statements? Because your statements before is quite long. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Maybe my question would be: do you think that sustainable tourism is applicable in Indonesia? For anyone that would have an opinion towards that. Mm, because I think that our government is liking the idea of sustainable tourism but doesn't actually do anything toward the sustainable tourism development in Indonesia. That I don't think that we, other than making probably videos of visit Indonesia, and I don't think that Kementerian Pariwisata is making any significant progress on the particular development in either sustainable tourism, later maybe community-based tourism, or any ecological minded tourism. Yes, Sunshine and Ahmad Fatullah.
Which one? I'm the first or Fatima first?
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, I do agree with you in the field that our government seems like still doing nothing in improving the sustainable tourism. But something that you didn't explain before is just how significant the changes of tourism that happen in Indonesia right now compared to, for example, like a decade ago, so that we can clarify just how significant, just how deep the differences, the development or the improvement that have been done by the government. And I believe it's also interesting to figure out just how far the significance between the sustainable tourisms that actually take place in developed countries and in developing countries. So after knowing that, I believe that we can actually measure just how far left behind Indonesia um, need to catch up with the developments that we actually want to achieve. I think that's the question, and also uh, some statement from me. Thank you.
No, okay. I don't know how it's work. It's better to work that I answer you right away, or I accept the question because there are three person that are raising their hands, or is it? I don't know. Should I? Okay, I'm just gonna answer you first. So, in measuring sustainable tourism, I just gonna say that you cannot measure an idea of sustainable tourism. So simply we can see simply that sustainable tourism and sustainable one of the sustainable tourism is community-based tourism, and the only place in Indonesia that really the government really focus on that is probably in Bali, the community-based tourism. And even then it's not achieving the goal of sustainability, you know. Sustainability is just an idea. You can never achieve that, you can never overachieve that. Or is it sustained in the sense that you are the money will always come, or is it sustained in the way that we are not permitting any of the natural resources, or in the sense that we we help the community? I don't think that I can answer your question based on number, or I cannot even have the, I don't know, I cannot even measure that because I also still learning about sustainability and its applicable theory on tourism. Okay. Probably next is there's Eka and Ahmad Fatullah. Maybe, but Eka is not raising his hand anymore. Okay, still. Eka, you can go.
Okay, thank you. There's a pengamen before, so I need to stay silent first because it's too noise. I think I don't know about sustainable tourism because this is a new thing for me. So I think the root problem in Indonesia when we talk about tourism is about the infrastructure. When you want to going to the next step as a sustainable development, for example, I think we still cannot we still unprepared for that things. For example, like how the local people in some areas that cannot how to say it, cannot maintain how to make the profit from their nature, or for example like the government still doesn't build the infrastructure, the road, or the how to say it, the system for the tourism itself. So I think before regarding beside the definition that you give to us about sustainable tourism as a theory, that you mentioned before in your presentation. I think it's good as a theory, but when you see in Indonesia the factual the factual things that happen in Indonesia, I think we should prepare the first thing before we say about sustainable. It's different maybe in some areas that still the local custom is strong in their society. I think it's different, but some others area they just tourism is a new thing when they knew about other people come to their area, and then they have to service them or provide the good quality of services, something like that. So I think in Indonesia we still cannot provide the sustainable tourism development, but we should first maintain us, how to say it, like the roadmap to get the sustainable tourism itself, something like that. Thank you, Miss City.
Okay, that's really good because you're simply saying that we know the term of sustainable tourism in Indonesia, but we don't know the definition and its application in Indonesia. That's how I catch you. So I think that's right. Even the education about sustainable tourism is just seems like a good, I don't know, people just seems to definite the sustainable tourism as a branding, not as an actual way or any development that needs to develop within the theory. So yeah. So Ahmad Fatullah then.
Okay, thank you for this chance. Um, yes, maybe it will be just the additional information or maybe additional question. Um, in my opinion, there is no any perfect place to define as the sustainable tourist place, because when when we see about the characteristic that you said before about the economic or maybe about the environmental or maybe the economic, uh, the whole of them sometimes is not appear in one place of area of I mean one tourist place. um, Sometimes they sometimes in the environment perspective, tourist area will destroy them, or maybe will change the traffic chain in that area, or probably will disturb by rubbish or the expansion of people who live around that area. Yeah, that will be a new issue for the sustainable tourism when I see it. Yeah, maybe every of you can give the example, the real example. Where is the sustainable tourist place in Indonesia that really exists? Is it a real example? I think not. Yeah, maybe it's just my opinion because I know I am idiot in this science. Thank you.
Actually, no, you have a good point. So when I say that sustainable tourism is an idea, it's like Pancasila, that we would never like achieve Pancasila, like literally achieve that, but we have that fundamental idea of our for the philosophy and theory. So that's why in theory it seems like it's more complicated, but one of the example that I really like in Indonesia is Taman Nasional Bali Barat. So there's numerous of place, hotels and villa in Bali Barat, so you can see sightseeing the wildlife instead of that you're sightseeing or something. Uh, and then it really close to Menjangan Island that you can dive there. So it's a really good tourism spot, and they are really doing the preservative because the Bali government really try to help them in developing this towards the sustainable tourism. So another probably Komodo, Ijen, Bromo. If you ever been to Bromo or Merapi, you can see the in the mountain that people go with the jeep, and that's where the sustainable tourism, because it's always happening, it's helping the community. So sustainable, one of the example of sustainable tourism is included in community-based tourism, ecology tourism, and green tourism. There's so many part of sustainable tourism, because that I'm still on the surface of sustainable tourism, but what you get, no, but your point is really right. It's not applicable in a way that it's going to be achieved, but we are going towards that. So yeah. And then the next is Robert. So
Hello, could you hear my voice?
yep, I do.
Okay, thank you for giving us the definition of sustainable tourism development, Ms. Chair. However, as I see, sustainable tourism development in Indonesia especially um, tends to be developed by top-down policy. I think it's a main problem in developing sustainable tourism in Indonesia. Sometimes it could evict or displace local communities, because when, for example, when some areas have been really popular, um, it will uh, be attractive for big industries, right? And big industries come to the places which are popular or famous at the time, and they often affect local communities and displace them with more big industries. I think that's huge problems, I think, in developing a sustainable tourism development, and we need to actually criticize it, right? I once watched a video related to tourism in Parry Island. Okay, so there's one local community who is criminalized by the factory, by the industry. He wanted to, conduct protest because he couldn't come to his area back then, and the factory criminalized him because he came to their area without any permission, and that's a problem. Because I think he is a local person in that area, but how come he could be criminalized by, foreign people that came to their area? And I think this is really a big problem. Because why? Because of why? Because the development of what's so-called sustainable tourism doesn't involve local communities in developing these lucrative industries in that place. Um, and as a result, I think that needs to be built is that the local communities themselves, I guess, they need to be, they need to conserve their places by themselves. So the government, for example, needs to, ask them first, ask the permission first for the local communities, and make sure how many lands that can be developed there. I think that's very important to do, right? And I want to share one of sustainable tourism developments that I watched several weeks ago. It's also in Bali, but I forget the name of the village. But the point is that the local community could actually conserve this tourism by themselves. They didn't ask a lot of money to tourists that come to their areas, because they assume that tourism is only bonus. It's not their um, main jobs or main occupations in that area, because most of their people work as farmers, work as craftsmen, for example, and they could actually earn a lot of money, a lot of benefits by doing so. And when tourisms, either from Indonesia or from other countries, come to their areas, they only recon the people coming to the area as a bonus in building their main way of living seriously. Like, um, what is that? Agricultures, farmers, craftsmen, crafts, etc. I think that's very important, because when we see one of the agrarian conflicts in Indonesia, that's caused mainly by tourism sectors as well. The reason why factories or businessmen or even government want to evict or displace their places is because of tourism, right? So yeah, again, we need to come back to local communities themselves to conserve their own areas. That's my opinion on this. Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion. It's really great. Actually, I'm going to say about the community and local community-based tourism later because they're part for that, but you guys have been to that point. So local community-based tourism is basically doing things for the community, and the the government not only have to educate but also help them as a partner to save them within the law of tourism. There's a law for tourism, and uh, actually you're really hit the point when you said that the government sometimes is not protecting its own community. It doesn't preserve either the human resources or the natural resources, in which that's what we need to achieve the so-called sustainable tourism. So yeah, that's a really great opinion. Is there anyone that raising their hands? No. So maybe we can continue. Next. Next, please. So yeah, sustainable tourism. Yeah, in developing countries, please. Sustainable tourism in developing country. Next. We already, yeah. This is in one of the simplest example is probably Indonesia. Sustainable tourism in developing countries, or maybe third world countries, or anything, found in the form of ecotourism or community-based tourism. So this is the part where you guys having the opinion that sustainable tourism is connected the dot between the community and based tourism and ecotourism, which makes them sustainable tourism. It provides employment, income generating opportunities, and financing for community projects which help preserve social ties and prevent out migration from rural communities. So this is what actually happening. We can see that Bali. Yes, we are still in developing countries. So this is what happened, why we need sustainable to applicate the sustainable tourism in Indonesia, because we need to help our local communities to provide employment, to generate income for them, to generate revenue whatsoever, and to help preserve its social ties so we can still be the Bhinneka Tunggal Ika as Indonesia. It benefits may occur to elite factions of community with limited benefits to the poor. So this is where the government have to involve themselves, and where tourism entrepreneurs interested in implementing initiative that helps alleviate poverty, government have to support and commit to the welfare of the citizens for its sustainability tourism essential success. So I think that this is answer all of the question that probably raised within the opinion just now. Next. So here it is. Ecotourism and community-based tourism. In developing countries, ecotourism and community-based tourism develop as complementary to more conventional mass tourism products. It found in the form of activities, example, village visits, cultural performance, and nature tracks. Nature tracks is probably the Komodo tracks that you can go to, and the village visits is one of you said that Robert says that I think I watched that. I think it might be Desa Penglipuran in Bali, and cultural performances is like tari kecak that performed on the plage. Recently, indigenous entrepreneurs and communities have developed budget resorts and village stays, catering for backpackers and independent travelers. So you can see community-based tourism is like people who own Airbnb. That's you can say that community-based tourism. So they rent their room on their home in one of the places that near to the tourism spot are natural resources that made by the community-based tourism. So that could be one that actually the Indonesian government has to help rather than just making videos in Visit Indonesia and cost like millions. Yep. Next. So this is ecotourism. Actually, we've been talking about this is natural environment or associated with the cultural context that Mother Earth friendly. So you can see that there's a lot of organization that probably doing things like um, plastic free ocean, like for ocean. There's a lot of communities or organizations that maybe has its own politics aim, but in a sense that they're also trying to applicate the ecotourism in Indonesia. Next. This is the most that we talk about tonight. It's community-based tourism. You can see there's a lot. It's actually several spots in Indonesia that actually community-based tourism because the government is not help educating the community. So that's why it doesn't come into the conclusion of sustainable. So community-based tourism aim to be a sustainable tourism, but they didn't last that long because the government doesn't provide them with what they need. So yeah, next. So we can see that competitiveness. This is about the tourism market intelligence and competitive departments work to provide knowledge and strategic guidance to support tourism destinations and the sector at large become more competitive and more destination management through efficient policies and governments. This is why I've been talking about the government help towards the communities. Next. So this is basically we already talked about first. So I'm saving a lot of the question for later because I want to have this. We are on the same page about sustainable tourism. But yeah, innovation, education, and investment. It's about the business opportunities and its development to improve the life or of our communities that Indonesia is actually having a lot of natural resources, but we are not really maximizing its opportunities. So that's why we need innovation, education, and investment. Next. So this is the last. It's ethics, culture, and social responsibility. So for the young generation, as I am enrolled in tourism master in Udayana. So we are having the ethics of to achieve this sustainable tourism because we have to preserve its natural resources, but not only that, we have to be ecological minded and we have to improve the life of the community as a social responsibility. So that's why these three is our way to achieve that goals. So yeah, you can just read it. Global Code of Ethics for Tourism, Accessible Tourism, and its Culture. So yeah, does anybody please attack me with your humble opinion? Does anyone wants to raise their hands? Okay, Sunshine. Okay, I'll share these slides later. It based on the theory from the books and the UNPO, so that probably that's why it's really really theoretical. Yes, Sunshine. Lowers.
Yeah. So I believe that there are three pillars when we talk about sustainable tourism. It will be social justice, economic development, and environmental integrity. So we talk about social, economic, and environment. And if one of the elements is not fulfilled yet or is not very well configured or given pay attention by any related entities, whether they are government, local, or even corporation, I believe that sustainable tourism will be just an imagination. Because so far, even in Indonesia, we're still having problems with just how our government still unable to counter the problem we have in related to COVID-19, and that's why back then in the beginning of Idul Fitri, yeah, there is a crash. There was a crash and clash of arguments and opinions between the government inside the government and the Minister of Pariwisata, Tourism, Mr. Sandiaga Uno, allow any movement or any commuting from one place to another for the sake of rejuvenating the areas in which the economic is so low, and at the same time the transportation minister or Menteri Dalam Negeri, how to say Dalam Negeri, yeah, forbid us to have a travel or to come back to make a trip to our hometown. And this is one of the indications of how failed the government in controlling the tourism. Because at the same time, I believe that Sandiaga Uno is considered as someone that can handle, but we don't particularly see any evident
Yep.
proof from Mr. Sandiaga Uno. From your opinion, what do you think that Sandiaga Uno need to do to prove to the society that Jokowi is actually right to choose him to become his minister? Thank you.
Okay, that's a really good question, though. I think that one of the things he might do is educate himself about community tourism and how complex it is to achieve that only, rather than talking about sustainable tourism. because it's not logical of what he does. So okay, I know that Kemenparekraf yang dulu, Pak Wisnu Utama, doesn't really do anything. But the vice, Ibu Angela Lilimiata Sudipyo, she has good ideas. I searched that she has good ideas, but it's not applicable because the differences of education level. So it's simply that we are all not in the same page about things. So that's why I think that no matter great the idea or the plan, if we don't really going to do this simple thing to know about the community-based tourism and help the community at first, then we are never going to achieve sustainable tourism. Because believe it or not, almost all of the tourism in Indonesia that probably attract the tourists from other countries is a community-based tourism or simply our natural resources. So yeah, that's one thing that probably Pak Sandiaga Uno has to do, is to learn about tourism, because he is not from the tourism background. So probably he would never analyze it that deep, that found that the mistake is only on the surface and it's really little, but it's yeah, it harms all of the ministry itself. So yeah, he has to do the SWOT analysis probably. So yeah, Ahmad Fatullah Afida Putra.
Thank you. Maybe something that I will say in this occasion will be quite different with the current situation. It's just in the ideal condition, just in my mind, maybe, because you said that, what is your opinion about this? It's only my opinion. I suppose that the ideal condition to create the tourism area in this world, it will be a virtual reality, because we will not disturb the ecologic directly. Virtual reality, virtual reality. But it will be more advanced. Seems like the customer will not only see about the situation only, but he will feel it. He can connect with the social around the virtual condition, and he can socialize with them and do many actions with them. He can live in that situation. Seems like the anime namely Sword Art Online. Seems like it. Seems like they live in the virtual condition, but they feel they are live in that place. So I suppose that it will be a new proposal to create the sustainable life, because it will not directly disturb the ecological condition. So what do you think about my proposal? Thank you.
Oh my god. To be honest, I'm not the person who would execute a plan that is not viable for me. So I know that maybe sustainable tourism is just like an ideal, but if we didn't go towards that, if we didn't try, then we would never get there. So I think that's my simple answer, because yeah, it's a complex thing. When you have an idea, when you agree to an idea, so there will be a consequences, so there will be problems that have to be solved, and I don't think I can answer that without knowing all of the contributing factors that would be entitled to the agreement. So yeah. I'm sorry if I don't answer your question correctly because that's my opinion. So I'm sending to the group chat a video made by a filmmaker from a foreigner filmmakers about Ijen. So in Indonesia, we're like, Ijen is so beautiful, let's go there. It's a beautiful place. But when we actually go there, then I think that we would have different approach to how we see the community-based tourism, that the government is not preserving, they're not preserving our own community or people. So please watch this video because we have to do more like this video. Like we have to, I don't know, I don't think that we can segregate things between the government problema and our problema as someone who wants to achieve sustainable tourism, but in a way that we have to do something. So that's why I'm still, even though I know that I would never achieve sustainable tourism, I will die trying. So yeah, please watch this video about Ijen so you would know another perspective of how cruel if we don't do the sustainable tourism development movement and education. Yeah. So yeah, Robert, you raise your hand.
It's my chance.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to talk before because I think my views that I want to share has been explained before, but I want to try again to explain it. Okay, I just want to try to perhaps elaborate community-based tourism that has been explained by our chair previously. I guess I didn't really catch the definition or the relationship between community-based tourism and sustainable tourism itself. Because for me, myself, I think local communities can definitely build their own sustainable tourism. Because as I know, local communities have been living there for ages, right? Even since their ancestors, they have living there for centuries even, right? And they actually don't destroy their environments because they only want to take the needs of their community in moderation, sufficiently, and not as much as industries, for example, that take environments, take forests, for example, oceans, and so on, a lot, right? They overdo it. They overdo them. They take a lot of things from the environments. If we perhaps let the big industries do centuries ago, the destruction of the environment, for let's say 30 years now, compared to centuries ago, is more destructive, right? Why this is happening? Because we let big industries build the tourism, the industries, because they only want to take a lot of advantages instead of making them sustainable. hence, from my explanation, I think building anything, or especially in terms of tourism, need to preserve local tourism themselves. Because as I said before, they have been living there for centuries, and they don't destroy their own communities, their own environments, oceans, forests, and so on. That's, I think, pivotal to do in building this tourism sector. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, to answer your question or opinion, I'm not countering, but this is my opinion. The moment you open your land for tourism, things change. It doesn't mean that community-based tourism will always think about a ecological thing. No, there's been a lot of places that wreck when it opens to the tourist, in the point that it cannot be saved because human wrecks things. So I don't think that so the correlation between community-based tourism and sustainable tourism is that we ought to help community-based tourism to be a sustainable tourism, so we can give them a sustainable support. That's all. So we can still preserve our land, gave them job, preserve our historical value, and etc. So I think that's the only way that I could say, because even like um, Maldives, even Maldives, what we know is a great place for a honeymoon. Is the sea is blue and the cottage is great, but Mali people have been suffering under the tourism that's not developing, in that the government is so poor that they cannot support them in the way that they need. But the moment they have opened their land for tourists, a touristic place, it changes. The bigger the development, the bigger the community-based tourism development, the bigger risk of it's not going to achieve sustainable tourism. So that's how I can give you a correlation between those two. Yep. And then Ahmad Fatullah Afida Putra, please.
Yes, thank you for this occasion. I have seen your video that you recommend to see, and yeah, I will share my opinion about it. It's a nice video for the creator, particularly for the videographer or maybe the content creator that's involved in it. I give a huge appreciate about it. But about the content, well, I have a few point of view. Yeah, firstly, why they live in that situation. I mean, yeah, they know that work in the sulfuric, sulfuric, how to say, apa, kawah, yeah, sulfuric kawah. Sorry, maybe Mr. Ota community can help me. Yeah, cave, sulfuric cave. Yes, everyone know that sulfuric cave is not quite appropriate for workplace. And why do they still do that? Yes, maybe one of the proposal to solve it is establish the tourism area, because the sulfuric but sulfuric cave can be the one. Yeah, maybe I can read it.
Um, mhm. Okay, I think I just going to answer because I don't know where Ahmad where about. Um, the fact that they are still doing the job that risking their life every day for their family that probably give a hint of situation that's probably there's no any vacation of job there. I'm sorry, I'm going to read. I'm afraid I disagree with that. It sounds that we more teach them in creating sustainable industries, but I guess we need to learn from their way of living to preserve the environment. Because I said they have been living them for centuries to conserve it. Yeah, but the thing is, we are talking about tourism. Tourism is to elevate life. So when talking about sustainability and tourism itself, I think that is when you talk about them separately. If you segregate them, it's two different things. But when you mix them, you have this certain and particular aim. So, and then back to Ahmad. Um, my answer for the opinion, but it's not finished. I'm afraid that it's not finished, and I already give my opinion. So you can you clear your opinion because it's just interrupted. Ahmad.
Yes. Wait. Yeah. Oh, maybe the tourism will be one of the solution for their workplace because the dangerosity from the sulfuric crater will be quite eradicated by the establishment of the tourism area. But um, something that will be opinionated after that is how to conserve the forest around that village. It will be a new issue, and yeah, you true that the education to them is quite important. It seems like sending a few teacher to teach them how to conserve the forest. But one thing again, maybe the reason why today they are still working in the dangerous situation in the sulfuric crater because the forest is not belong by the civilian that live in the village. So that's why they don't work in the forest rather than in the crater. So it will be a new issue again. Probably the forest itself is owned by particular person that have that land, and they don't give any what allowance to the village that live besides that area to work in that place. Seems like uh, finding the tree, the log, or maybe uh, just creating fertilizer maybe from the leaves that down to the land. So it will be a new issue and quite interesting topic that a few of land in that area is not belonged by the civilian that live in that area. Um, yeah, that is only my opinion. I don't want to give any question because the obligation, the person that can give uh, and allow the question is the moderator. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Eka Dharma Yuda.
Okay, I just wanna maybe share my opinion about when we talk about the sustainable tourism uh, based on the theory that you give us on your presentation. I still don't get it in Indonesia. For example, like when you said about the system of the value system, belief. There are a lot of tradition or culture that we cannot go in there. We just like in Borneo, for example, we just can go to the altar or the main building to see their perkakas. What is perkakas in Indonesia? Their things, for example, or their dancing, how they dancing, or how they pray to within their belief, for example. So we cannot know how their life, how the daily life, how they go hunting, for example, like that. So I think in Indonesia, when we want to talk wider about tourism, there's no Indonesian people that control the site, how to say, the 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 tourist destination. For example, like in Bali, almost 90% ruled by the outsider, by Australian, by American, by Italian, or etc., etc., etc. So when the government wants to create the development to our people, then for example, how we uh, dismantle the contract. Because in Bali, when you want to buy a land, but you're not Balinese, you cannot buy a land. You have to use other name as a Balinese, for example. So it's contract and it's a law. So if we want to develop our people welfare, and 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 we should think about the consequence after that. Because uh, it, I don't know why government so in spirit to rebuild our tourism. And I think it's because a lot of them is coming from outsider, and the outsider is hold a lot of money, a lot of how to say, liquid money, something like that. So I think it still be the problem with this theory of sustainable tourism. Just like I said about food, for example, they said that if we eat meat, we how to say, menyumbang, we are the part of carbon emission, for example. And they said we can eat something like other than meat. But I say, if we, all the people in the world already decide to not to eat a meat, for example, and then we just create another industry about this sustainable. It's not be sustainable for for us anymore. For example, if okay, we have to go with this sustainable tourism, and it's just go with another capitalism things that coming from other island or other countries, for example. And still the victim will be ours. Like, for example, they said, oh, this is sustainable tourism, we create this one, this is etc., etc., etc. And then there's no impact for the local, and for the komodo also there's no impact for the komodo. I think that's my opinion. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Miss Siti can explain more about that to me. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. So, to answer that, I would just say that the opinion is probably correct. I agree with that opinion because sustainable tourism is impossible to achieve, right? And then here we come having this kind of idealist, and then we are going to be a capitalist, and when there's money, and then we become capitalist, and that's true. That's true. But we cannot stop doing this. If we stop doing this, then human will just wreck it all. If we are stop nurturing ourselves with education towards saving our earth, our people, our heritage, and then yeah, let's wrap up a new 10 Bali program. Yeah, I have read that 10 Bali program in Indonesia, and yeah, and I don't know why I don't want to like familiarize that sustainable tourism is only applicable in Bali. I think that sustainable tourism has to be applied in a lot of places in Indonesia. There's a lot of tourism places in Indonesia, and I think yeah, that's a great one. And then the next, Cikoneng Ilir.
Yeah, well, thanks for me for the opportunity given for me. I would like to give it as the economic perspective, as the common civil society. I said uh, I don't know exactly what is theories and also the matter about the tourism, but regarding to as I said before, as the common civil society, I would say in Indonesia, especially the resident, rather difficult to define what is the differences between investment and tourism place. Because yeah, it is the one the investment is the one part of the sustainable tourism place, right? But in the other term, there are a lot of investment that could be a given to give what is exactly the government orientation. Because if we will say the tourism is like a secondary from the primary orientation in our government, especially agriculture and also technology perhaps in this condition, and also education. So the tourism is secondary. So there are a lot of the good local tourism place, but the government doesn't care about that because of the lack of the interest or also orientation. But I would like say that I agree with your opinion that only like the advertisement in wonderful Indonesia, but I don't know. I don't get it to their place. Yeah, for I live in Banten, and Banten near with the several known tourism place like Bogor, and also in Bandung, Pangandaran for the beach. So I would say that let's give it one province perhaps that will mark as the landmark of the international tourism. It will be profitable. Then the government should give the advertisement, or perhaps like you mentioned before, Bali, like can become like Abu Dhabi in the UAE because they focus on the beach for that. But for the West Java, I prefer to not a tourism place, but for the agriculture because we got a lot of what is that? A lot of the place, especially for the agriculture, and the West Java contribute more in our sustainable agriculture than a tourism place. So that the reason why the government doesn't care what is how to preserve our tourism place, especially locally and in every single region. Thank you.
Yeah, I think um, I don't know how to call you. Is it Chikoning?
Yeah, you can call me a Chikoneng. It's okay.
Mr. Chico.
Mr. C.
And then me and Mr. Chi is on the same page, right? And then yeah, Ahmad again.
Yeah, thank you for this time.
I cannot hear you. I'm sorry.
Shit, I haven't mute. I haven't unmute. Yes. I will give a little comments about the zoo. Zoo can be one of proposal to create the sustainability for the animal kingdom uh, in this life, or maybe a few of plantae. Uh, but um, but when I see about the advancement in nowadays, seems like a few of the wild animal, they can be a domestic animal from the wild tiger that is quite terrified in the wildlife. They will be like a dog in several country. Oh my god. Yeah. And maybe the genetics from them will be disturbed, maybe in the future. It's just my opinion. So in the end, I just want to conclude that zoo can be one proposal to give the spare life to them, but in the general perspective, actually, we are still disturbing their society. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that you already mentioned about the animal welfare and animal cruelty, right? So do you think that in order to prevent their extinction that we maybe can preserve them in a zoo or we can save their genetics, but you don't think like the attraction for perhaps like maybe doing things like in a circus, because I think that there's a lot of zoo that now are doing that I think is not even, it's not in the ethics of sustainable tourism, but it's one of tourism. So yeah. And then Eka.
Yeah, I think we need to build a Jurassic World because Indonesia is like a country that can make something something in imagination become real. For example, like soap opera, like Sinetron. We see that a lot of family, a lot of people in real life uh, be their life like just in Sinetron. I think we should build Jurassic World so we can how to say it, like we can be we can, so we have something to how to say, like to to make it in the real life, because we have a lot of how to say, komodo is what animal, aesthetic. We have a lot of aesthetic animal, right? So if we can talk more about them, maybe we can attract more people to come to Indonesia and make a lot of money for us. Thank you.
Think that Sunshine has some dose of sarcasm because yeah, even though we ought to have to print to make more money, and I think that people forget about things like animal welfare and etc etc. And I think that yeah, places like coral Bali in which you treat animal not in the way that you're supposed to treat them as a being, that I don't think it's fulfilled the of sustainable tourism. Is a good with them? I don't know. So I think there are a lot of ways rather than politically and money minded to do the sustainable tourism. Does anyone has any more or opinion, raising their hands? Yep, Ahmad.
Yeah, maybe it will be my last statement as one person that give a huge opinion about the ecological perspective rather than the tourism perspective. As you know that I am idiot in tourism. Um, when we say about the sustainable tourism, we need to what erase the terminology of sustaining ecologic, because in my opinion there is no way to make them together. Seems like an oil and water, it's quite separate. When someone want to create a tourism, it will distract the ecologic that exists in the preliminary place.
Right.
So something that we can do is just spare them to life as they want. I mean, they as animal, plant, microbial, and anything that live in that area, just spare them live. If you want to say to sustainability in ecological perspective, but when you say if to optimize the sustainability of the area that is before it created, um, so sustainability in the ecological perspective that you propose just for it, for the areas that was established before by the humankind that lived before us as the descendant of them. That is my perspective.
Okay. Eka, go.
Yeah, I want to make my last statement too. Maybe this sustainable program is developed by developed country, right? So I think they already finished with the problem with the society, for example, about welfare, about law enforcement, etc., etc. And I think that's true that Mr. Sansan said that animal doesn't have right in our law system. For example, like if a lion kill a deer, the deer family cannot go to the court to defend their rights, right? So uh, I think this. I think when we talk about animals, right, Indonesia is still doesn't have the time to talk about it because we still struggle with horizontal conflict. We struggle about welfare. We struggle about our law system. We struggle about the nation character, for example. So I think when so I think what we can do right now is we prepare what what how to say it, yang ada di depan mata. We prepare about that. So for example, Bali already have their own culture, and the world already know about it. So when we uh, we 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 use it, and then we prepare the next step to the sustainable tourism, and then after that we can move to Lombok, for example, or we can move to Medan, and then we can move to Java, and after that we have the good road to get to the sustainable tourism, because sustainable things is developed by developed country that they didn't prepare what happens or what the actual things happen in developing country. So I think that's my last statement. Thank you, Miss Siti.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tika Nangilir.
Okay, well, yeah, perhaps the last statement too. um, uh, uh, okay, I think there are two solutions in my perspective regarding how to create or fabricate a sustainable tourism place. The first is creating the economic recovery. I mean, the government should government should provide or preserve, like educating the indigenous people in the tourism place. It is the good thing that the government do, because I had an experience with my friends that live in Rangkas Bitung, but in the other sector. I said, why don't you continue to the agriculture sector? Because your hometown will preserve you to build and give what's that, the useful thing in your environment. But he said, I would not to be a farmer because there is not a money or the great income that I will get it. So for this condition, there are a lot of people moved, for example, to the Java island to get a better opportunity, especially in the technical, civil, and also industries activities, because there are the lack of the income in that sector that they will develop it. And the second is building or exacerbating the gap between the high class and also the low class by giving the good program. For example, like what the government province, especially West Java, did is Petani Millennial, because this is the good thing that the millennial can contribute to their Jakarta. There is Jakarta, okay, sorry, Jakarta Pintar Card atau kartu Jakarta Pintar. It's our their focus on exacerbating the gap between the low class to reach the high class, especially who had been in the good education. So for the place that, for example, like Mr. Eka living in Bali, so the government should with like perhaps pemandu millennial or whatever is it, the Mr. Eka will get the interest to develop to the foreign investor. Thank you.
Wow.
Kepala sekolah apa? Headmaster.
Yes, Ahmad. Ahmad Abar. Actually, Mr. Sunshine wants to make his last statement. So, to Mr. Sunshine's first, please make your last statement.
Thank you. Anyway, so um, I only expect that Indonesia will create kind of tourism that actually pay attention a lot to the conditions of nature, the conditions of animals, locals, and how they can coexist together, the one that can mutually benefit one another. I believe that this kind of thing is really essential since the government seem to be the corporation that contributed a lot to develop or to build up this nation, since basically the governments is considered failed to manage the tax given or paid by the society. Uh, I believe that we should, how to say, coordinate our government, make a clear resolution if, I mean, like, if we believe that the government um, unable to do something properly, we as the citizen must fully realize what we need to do. Since we basically, even though we probably are not being taught about tourism stuff in our class or at school, but basically we know something wrong, we know something we lack of, we know something that we need to do to overcome the solution and the problem that remain unsolved by the problem and by the governments. So, in short, I'd like to say that, um, yeah, just like what has been said by Alvin, um, not only see something as like under my watch, but we need to do some action. And probably OTA will become the bridge, yeah, to deliver our opinions and ideas and also make us fully aware what we need to do as the young generations of this nation. I think that's for me. Thank you.
Well said, Mr. Sunshine. And maybe, Robert, do you want to make your last statement as well? No? Yes?
Pardon.
Yeah, you can. Can you make your last statement as well so we can conclude that in the end?
Mm. It's kind of hard because I haven't prepared my last statement yet. Um, what can I say? Okay. The problems that I always talked earlier in this group is about top-down policy, right? It's not only in tourism sectors but other sectors. In regards to tourism sectors, especially in building um, sustainable tourism development, I guess. Bottom up policy is the thing that we need to improve in Indonesia right now, because as I see, most of programs, most of policies are supported by what's so-called top-down policies by the elites, by um, foreign investments, for example, from the governments, from the private industries in Indonesia, for instance. Therefore, I think what things that in Indonesia lack is that bottom-up policy. Therefore, we need to conserve again and again. I always say it, local communities in certain areas that the developments of tourism sectors want to be built in that areas. I think that's pivotal to do. Therefore, as educated people, as what has been said by Mr. Sunshine, I want to clarify again here. We need to educate them. We need to voice ourselves that um, protecting environment, conserving local communities are essential to do in building anything. When the development, for example, let's say um, harm local communities, harm the environments, I think that needs to be stopped. That's my conclusion. Thank you.
So I think to conclude all of the last statement and all of the statement that we need to do something about this, and we are educating ourselves with nurturing ourselves with exchanging minds, and I think that is really good when we're talking more about this, and maybe the resolution will come right away. It's like the light in the end of the tunnel. So yeah, I think it's been a really good uh, more a great discussion tonight, and I would like to give it back to the host. Yeah, uh, to the host, the floor is yours again.
Well, thank you so much for Miss Dea that has given that has moderated our discussion today. And yeah, there are the several vocabularies that I will tell you here, but sometimes it's related to how to say the several minister in English. It's like this one. Ya, ini ada nama-nama kementerian ya. Saya bakal ngirim di apa ya, di grup di situ supaya ntar teman-teman nggak lupa-lupa lagi nama-nama menteri. Jadi nggak bisa kita bulat-bulatin ya kayak translate-nya. Jadi memang apa ya agak ya berbeda di situ. Terus selanjutnya juga buat teman-teman yang masih sering losing ideas di situ ketika apa menjelaskan sesuatu, mungkin beberapa teman-teman udah paham bahwasanya beberapa menggunakan skill dari mind mapping ya. Jadi sebenarnya melakukan mind mapping itu gampang, yaitu mencoba mulai dari sesuatu yang lebih general terlebih dahulu, general menggerucut sampai akhirnya kita masuk ke conclusion atau kesimpulan ketika kita nge-convey statement kita di situ. Nah, contohnya kita bicara tentang Indonesia. Nah, ketika kita bicara Indonesia, di situ mungkin apa terlebih dahulu yang bakal teman-teman sampaikan di situ. Nah, kebanyakan orang langsung menjelaskan ke sesuatu yang sangat spesifik di situ. Jadi ketika mereka udah menjelaskan ke sesuatu yang sangat spesifik di situ, kadang-kadang dia bakal lose ideas di situ. Nah, maka dari itu coba di generalize the topic. Jadi for instance, ketika teman-teman dapat kesempatan untuk bicara Indonesia, mungkin cari sesuatu yang lebih general. Contohnya kayak bicara tentang geografinya. Ya, jadi jangan langsung mention archipelago dan sebagainya. Terus yang kedua, nggak tahu lagi ngomong apa tentang geografi, baru pindah ke pendidikan misalnya. Nggak tahu lagi ngomong ke pendidikan, terus baru pindah ke politik misalnya. Terus nggak tahu lagi bicara politik, udah bla 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 dan sebagainya, terus pindah ke mungkin health ya. Terus nggak tahu lagi bicara apa tentang health, baru pindah ke sisi-sisi yang lain. Nah, kalau nggak tahu lagi mau ngomong apa, baru mungkin di conclusion kan di situ. Nah, jadi cara ini atau nge-generalize sebuah apa question di situ adalah salah satu cara di situ supaya kita nggak losing ideas di situ. Dan juga salah satu cara kita juga ngomongnya nggak muter-muter ya. Jadi beberapa teman-teman yang ngerasa ngomongnya masih muter-muter mungkin bisa digunakan cara ini. Jadi ketika kita udah ngomong geografi sampai habis bla 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 dan sebagainya, terus kita pindah ke pendidikan. Ngomong di pendidikan bla 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 dan sebagainya, pindah ke politik. Nah, jadi ketika udah nyampe politik jangan balik ke geografi lagi di situ. Nah, jadi intinya di situ kalau kita balik lagi kita around the bus, muter-muter di situ. Nah, jadi skill seperti ini bisa teman-teman gunakan selain menggunakan apa ya 5W, 1H dan sebagainya di situ. Mungkin ketika diskusi ya dengan topik-topik yang seperti ini di situ. Nah, jadi bakal lebih straight to the point di situ. Jadi nggak muter-muter ngomongnya. Oke, itu aja buat hari ini. Sebelumnya, thank you so much for Dea that has come to our discussion tonight. Ya, before we close our discussion atau Zoom ini, saya mau ngajak teman-teman semua untuk apa ya, taking picture dulu deh. Oke. Oke, buat teman-teman semua, please turn on your camera, please. Mijo. Wes, Ahmad Albar ya.
Tuh Indrewano suruh nyalain kamera dulu.
Ah, oh, udah device gue. Oke, Robert. Ini Robert apa nih? Robert Lewandowski. Bintang. Mr. Star. Miss Sari. Dalbit. Dalbit ya. Oke. Mr. Cikoneng udah ganti nama asli ya? Reza. Ya, jadi buat teman-teman yang nggak tahu nama asli Cikoneng, inilah nama aslinya Reza ya. Mana Cikoneng? Langsung nggak muncul deh. Oke, Mr. Muhammad Ikhwan, maybe. Ini siapa nih? Ini bahasa Mandarinnya apa nih ya? Saya nggak tahu nih. Chachun. Ya, Chachun. Oke, kita foto bareng-bareng ya. 3, 2, 1. Slide 1. Ntar dulu. Motonya gimana sih? Oke, ini dia. Oke, Mr. Sunil lah foto. Butuh bantuan.
Anjay.
Oke.
Oke lah.
3,
Wait,
2,
wait, wait.
1. Slide 1. Gaya 1. Slide 2. Slide 3. Slide 4. Slide 5. And 6 terakhir. Okay, thank you so much for a nice discussion. Yeah, I do hope you can get improving, especially in your insight and also your English. Thank you so much, guys. And hell, Ota.
Yesterday. We say tomorrow.
Today, say tomorrow. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Thank you.
Not at all.